Our gospel reading is taken from the gospel according to Mark. Listen to what this reading from Mark would say to your spirit, to our society, to our world. Let the Spirit guide your ears as you listen to the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, verses 38 to 44. As Jesus taught, he said, "Beware of the scribes, who like to walk around in long robes and to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces, and to have the best seats in the synagogues and places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses, and for the sake of appearances, they say long prayers. They will receive the greater condemnation." He sat down opposite the treasury and watched the crowd putting money into the treasury. Many rich people put in large sums. A poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which are worth a penny. Then he called his disciples and said to them, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the treasury. For all of them have contributed out of their abundance. But she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had to live, all that she had to live on." May God bless to our understanding this reading from God's holy word. And to God's name be glory and praise. Amen. Rest with me, my friends, in the comfort of abundance. Let us find joy in the comfort of abundance. Abundant life, abundant grace, abundant love. Abundance is the given on which our lives are built, the taken for granted fact that surrounds us and contains us and occupies us. When I think about my life, and perhaps you think about yours, there was no scarcity of options for us, at least not for me when I was young and I wanted to figure out if I would be a teacher or an artist or take a career in the church. The road was traveled. I had an abundance of choices. I always assumed that I had an abundance of rights that would protect me as long as I kept the law and allow me to live however I pleased. The rich and dizzying abundance of our world seemed and seems too vast to even know. Its colors, its flavors, its rich, one of my favorite words, autumnal. Its rich autumnal smells, its sensations, its sounds. There's more wonder and pleasure in this world than we can begin to notice or name. It's been a very long time, for me at least, since I've had to worry about money for food or for housing. Now it's more of a question of, do I want Thai or Indian? Or any of the other abundant varieties of cuisines available within half an hour of here. Even our abundance is abundant. We know little of what it would mean to live without the choices that we rarely notice. We can find comfort in the abundance of the lives that we live and of the world in which we live them. All we have, all that we are, all that we do, all that we give, it flows from this big abundance that we did not give ourselves, but which comes from outside of us. Like those rich worshipers in the story of the widow's penny, for 2 mites makes a penny. We give out of our abundance. A few years ago, I read the memoirs of a man who had a period of life that was not at all abundant. I read the memoirs of an Englishman named Michael Scott Moore, who had been kidnapped by Somali pirates. There are still pirates in this world. Somali pirates off the coast of Somalia in 2012 and held for 977 days, 2.5 years. His harrowing true story is told in the autobiographical book, The Desert and the Sea. And do you know why he named it that? That was all he got to look at. The desert and the sea, if indeed he was not blindfolded. Moore's captors, the pirates, would occasionally make him call his poor mother back in England, poor elderly old woman, to demand $20 million in ransom, which of course she didn't have. The story of Moore's captivity takes 450 pages to tell. Usually, if I see a book of 450 pages, I skip it. Moore had been a journalist. He was covering the trials of some pirates in Somalia. Toward the end of his stay in Somalia, he himself got kidnapped by the pirates and transferred about by night from place to place so that the police would never find them. And his book describes a life of nearly complete sensory deprivation and social isolation, a life without the abundance that you and I take for granted every single day. He might spend a week in a tent in the desert in the stifling heat with nothing to do. The boredom so profound that he thought he would just go insane. Then he might get moved to some dark back bedroom in some abandoned house out in the bush. Often he was shackled and blindfolded, sometimes not. The pirates didn't torture him or threaten him, and they did feed him, though the food was never very abundant and it was never very good, and he never got to ask, for Thai or Indian. At least they didn't let him go hungry. He tried to escape on a few occasions and he got beat up for it, but he had to try, wouldn't you? The long empty days in the hot rooms with no one to talk to, nothing to do, no books to read, no phone, no radio, no television. It began to make him irrational. Day in, day out, just sitting in darkness. Or when he was lucky, staring out at the sea or the sand. It was driving him crazy. He fantasized about murdering his least favorite pirates, the ones who would mock him or sneer at him. He struggled with suicidal thoughts, but he maintained his fragile grip on his own humanity and his sense of humor. Finally, he got transferred to a hijacked fishing vessel and lived on the shadeless deck along the poor kidnapped crew, men from Indonesia and Malaysia and Cambodia. At least he was no longer alone, but he couldn't talk to them because nobody spoke the same language, or he didn't speak their language and they didn't speak his. The ship at last gets rescued. Moore is sent back to England, where he is almost made crazy by all the noise and all the sounds and all the lights and all the choices. This is the question of abundance. We take it for granted until it's gone. You're surrounded by all the moments of the day. All the moments of the day you are surrounded by choices and possibilities, things you could do, things you could eat or drink, most of which you won't. Jobs you could tackle, like raking those leaves. It's time. Ways to amuse yourself. People to interact with. Conversations to be had. You could text an old friend right now. It wouldn't be polite, but you could do it. You've got choices, so many of them. Places to go. Activities to engage in. Not to mention all the world's sights and smells and wonders, its colors, its flavors. These things exist in abundance, in even the narrowest of lives, even in a nursing home. You can choose to go to bingo, or you can choose to remain in your room. And if you remain in your room, you can watch TV. And if you watch TV, you can watch Mayberry RFD reruns or Gunsmoke reruns, or maybe a soap opera. Sorry, you younger guys don't even know what that is. Mayberry RFD. You might catch a game show. You've got choices. It's only when you no longer have choices that you realize how many choices life usually has. Our habitual abundance. Abundance is to us like water to a fish, like air to our lungs. We do all things out of our abundance. Where there is no abundance, our bodies and our spirits suffer, like Michael Scott Moore in Somalia. This story that we just read from the Gospel of Mark used to be known as the widow's mite. Not might, but mite, M-I-T-E. A mite was a halfpenny, a half penny. and 2 of them made 1 cent. Jesus watches as the worshipers walk past the collection plate. Aren't you glad we don't do it that way? And drop their donations into the plate. And the rich give, as Mark says, out of their abundance. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's good. There's no criticism. But the widow gives out of her great penury, her poverty. And you know, when you hear the word widow in the Bible, it doesn't always just mean widow. Widow is code word in the Bible for anybody who has nothing. No status, no privilege, no voice. Because in that society, that's what a widow had. Unless she had an adult son who could take care of her, or maybe a brother, or a nephew or an uncle who could take her in, she was destitute, just like a divorced woman. She had nothing. Inheritances always went to the nearest male relative. Now here's the thing about the Bible. You can usually find yourself in any Bible story. You're usually in there. You can't take them literally, but figuratively. You can find yourself in any of these stories, and that's part of the power of the Bible. There's usually a character in the story who stands in for you. It may not be the same character every time you read that story. It might be a different character depending on where you are in life that day. Sometimes you are the prodigal son. Sometimes you're the older sibling who condemns the prodigal son. Sometimes you are the loving parent waiting for that child to come home and wringing your hands. Which character are you in this story? The story of the widow's mite. Who are you today? Are you the widow? Are you the disciples who are just kind of standing, looking, watching the drama of wealth and poverty as it marches in front of you? Is it possible that you're one of the people at the temple who gives out of their abundance? Good people, fine people, generous people. That's where I am today, I think. Perhaps you too. When I give, it's out of my abundance, and I choose where to give what I give. We're not bad people. We give. But we're secure people. Because we know that no matter what we give, we're always going to have more. We're secure people. We know that no matter what happens in this society and in this world, we'll probably land on our feet because this society was made for people like us. We're okay. We're able to give. This society was made by people like us. Plus, we're giving back. We really are. Unlike the widow who gives out of her poverty, you and I give out of our abundance. All that we do, all that we are, all that we give. We do it knowing that there's more. It flows from the abundance that we did not give ourselves. Yes, we worked hard all our lives, but we did not create the beautiful abundance of this wondrous world. Will you and I recognize the abundance of our lives without getting kidnapped by pirates? Ironically, we live with a worldview of scarcity. There's not enough. There's not enough for everyone, and not enough for me and mine if I share with you and yours. Sure, we want to help others. We're going to help others. We want to be compassionate and generous as long as the recipients are worthy. But when it comes right down to it, I've got to get mine first because there's not enough for everyone. That is the mindset that we live with in this world. This is what's called the doctrine of scarcity. And it makes us compete. It makes us like dogs and cats. It makes us fight. It drives the consumerist machine that we're all working for. We've labored under its tyranny for centuries, for millennia. Even in times of old, there's not enough land. I've got 1,000 acres. I'll let you farm it. As long as you know it's mine and you give me half the barley and the rye that you raise on it, because it's mine. And you should be grateful. It's my land. If prices are high, it's because commodities are in short supply. There's not enough for everyone. And it's not just things, it's not just commodities. It's time. It's energy. It's dedication. There's a lack of everything. There's not enough time to do the things that would make us healthy and sane. There's no time for community, no time for family, no time for exercise, no time for prayer, no time for church, no time to sit down once a week and have a meal with your family at the dining room table. We lack money, we lack time, we lack resources, we lack interest, we lack will. Really, the worldview of scarcity is just a bundle of excuses for why we don't care. There is enough for everyone in the world. There is enough. Love is the only thing in short supply, because we will always, always find time and energy and resources for the people and the things that we love. Where love is, nothing lacks. Do you believe that? Where love is, nothing lacks. And so, 2 tasks on this day. First, we need eyes to see the rich abundance of our daily living and of our world. Second, let us give out of that abundance, knowing that there is enough. How do we undertake the first task of recognizing our abundance? Look around your life. What people or things would you really miss if you didn't have them? I bet there's a lot. The daily work that gives life its deep satisfaction. We grumble about it, but we love it. And that work also gives rest its sweetness, the friendships that strengthen us and gather us into communities like this one. The able bodies, at least able enough to get us where we want to go in this world. The family bonds that give us a sense of place and belonging and security. The choices, the opportunities, the things to do, the places to go. The great divine gift of choosing between all of this to determine our own way through this world. This doesn't even begin to name the joys of sight and sound and flavor and touch. What about all the books that we still have to read? Oh man. And the thoughts we get to think freely. Our abundance is beyond knowing, if we would but see it. How much more joyful our lives would be if we would train our eyes upon our abundance. And the second task is to give out of our abundance. The rich worshipers in the story of the widow's mite gave out of their abundance, Mark says. That's fine. That's the only way they could give. And the divine spark within us makes us all want to give. We all want to give something to the world that created us, or that nurtured us, I should say. We all want to give back in meaningful ways. You and I too, we give from our abundance. Now, like you, I get appeals from many worthy causes. NPR is always asking for money. Political candidates are still asking for money. Environmental groups are always asking for money. These are good causes, charities that help vulnerable people at home and abroad. They're asking for money. Shem, they'll take anything you got, and they need it. Wikipedia is asking you for money, and you know what? My wife gets mad at me because I always give to Wikipedia. Because I turn to Wikipedia at least 3 or 4 times a day. Seriously. Wikipedia, if they need money and I use them freely, I feel like I should give them something, $5, $10. And I give it out of my abundance, knowing that it's not really going to hurt me. And I'll be able to give to the other causes that I still care about. Now, if you're visiting with us today, please don't think that we're always asking for money, only in the fall. And this is the only sermon of the year where I work up my nerve to say the church too relies upon your abundance. Everything that we do here, every mission that we undertake, the worship, the community, the education, all of it, it's done entirely by you. And the support that you give to this church In supporting this church, you're caring for orphans in Kenya and refugees in Brookline and the hidden hungry right here in Mount Lebanon, and they are there. By giving to Bower Hill, you're ensuring that people will find inspiration and community and guidance and meaning and hope in this place for years to come. You've received your pledge card in the mail. I hope you will fill it out, send it back in. Nobody will know what you give except our financial secretary who's not a church member. And we need that to create the annual budget based on what our members and friends pledge to us for the year ahead. I would implore you to do that. Next week, we're going to bless those promises and create a budget on them. So try to get them into the church office next week, but that is not really what I want this sermon to be about. What I really want this sermon to be about is the abundance that we take for granted and that can come back and comfort us sometimes when we think we're on our own in this world. We give everything we give out of abundance. It was hard to know what to preach this week. We had planned this to be Stewardship Sunday months ago, not knowing what the mood in the world would be at this hour. And yet we can take comfort in our abundance. Much that is good is being lost. Hate and greed and fear do sometimes win the day, but they cannot win the good eternity from which all our days flow. Let us recognize our abundance. Let us give out of our abundance. Rest with me, my friends, in the comfort of that abundance. Abundant life, abundant grace, abundant love. Amen.